Help me reach 1,500 subscribers. She said it loudly enough for the entire table to hear, leaning back in her chair with a drink in her hand and a smile that invited attention. He's just the babysitter who pays rent. For half a second there was silence. Then the laughter came. Not polite laughter. Real laughter. The kind that spreads fast, bouncing off walls, spilling into nearby conversations. Someone slapped the table. Someone else nearly choked on their drink. I felt every pair of eyes turn toward me, waiting to see how I'd take the joke. I smiled. Not because it was funny, but because I knew exactly what would happen if I didn't. I'd be called sensitive, insecure, unable to take a joke. That's how it always went. So I smiled and raised my glass slightly, playing along with the role she just assigned me. The safe one. The reliable one. The man who made everything possible while staying invisible. Inside, something tightened, but I kept my posture relaxed, my expression neutral. This wasn't the first time she'd spoken about me like that in public. It had started small, disguised as humor. Little comments about how I was too responsible, or basically a dad already. People laughed, and she laughed with them, and I told myself it didn't matter. That it was just words. But words stack up. They build a picture. And once that picture is clear enough, people stop seeing you any other way. The party itself was nothing special. Loud music, dim lights, too many people pretending to have a better time than they actually were. Most of them were her friends. I knew them well enough to be polite, not well enough to feel comfortable. I'd spent the evening refilling drinks, keeping an eye on the kids in the other room, answering questions about work. Playing my part. When she made the joke, it felt less like a surprise and more like confirmation. Someone at the table added, "Hey, at least you're useful." More laughter. Another smile from me. Another quiet note taken somewhere deep inside. I noticed how she didn't look at me when they laughed. She was too busy enjoying the moment, the attention, the approval. It was easier to laugh with them than to notice what it was costing me. I remembered when she used to introduce me differently. Back when my presence meant something more than convenience. Back when she spoke about me with pride instead of irony. I wondered when that shift had happened, when respect had been replaced with comfort and comfort with contempt. It hadn't been sudden. It never is. It happens slowly, disguised as familiarity, until one day you realize you've become the punchline. The conversation moved on, but the damage didn't. I sat there, nodding at the right moments, answering questions when asked, all while feeling oddly detached from my own body. It was like watching myself from a distance, a character in someone else's story. The more I observed, the clearer it became. No one at that table saw me as her partner. They saw me as an accessory. A background detail. And the worst part was that she'd taught them to. Later, when I stepped away to check on the kids, the noise faded, replaced by the quiet hum of a house settling around too much chaos. The children were asleep on the couch, tangled in blankets, unaware of the roles adults play and the ways words can wound. I stood there longer than necessary, letting the silence sink in. For the first time that night, I allowed my face to fall. I didn't feel angry. Not yet. Anger would have been easier. What I felt was clarity. A sharp, uncomfortable clarity that cut through every excuse I'd been making for years. I saw how often I'd stayed quiet to keep the peace. How often I'd accepted disrespect to avoid conflict. How I'd convinced myself that being needed was the same as being valued. When I returned to the party, she was still laughing, still glowing under the attention. She barely noticed me sit back down. And I realized something important in that moment. The joke hadn't embarrassed me. It had revealed me. To them, yes, but more importantly, to myself. I finally understood the role I'd been playing and the cost of continuing to play it. I stayed until it was polite to leave. I said my goodbyes. I helped clean up. I did everything I always did. But inside, something had shifted permanently. The laughter echoed in my mind, not as noise but as a signal. A warning I could no longer ignore. I knew that when this night ended, something else would end with it, even if no one else realized it yet.